Amanda adjusted her red gown as she sat across from Obina at the elegant restaurant in the heart of Enugu City. The place was filled with soft music, and the smell of grilled chicken and spicy jollof rice filled the air. The lighting was warm, the perfect setting for a romantic dinner. Obina, her boyfriend of 7 years, looked around, nodding approvingly at the classiness of the place. He was a man of wealth, always making sure people saw him as important and powerful. Amanda, on the other hand, was simple and loving. She had been loyal to him, hoping that after all these years he would finally propose to her. But deep down, she knew Obina had never truly respected her. He always found a way to embarrass her, yet she stayed, believing he would change. Just as she lifted her fork to eat, she felt a warm, wet sensation between her legs. Her heart stopped. She looked down in horror. Her period had arrived unexpectedly. A large stain was already spreading on her dress. Her hands shook as she quickly reached for her purse, searching for a scarf to cover herself. But before she could move, Obina noticed the stain. His face twisted in disgust. "Amanda," he hissed loudly, his voice filled with anger and embarrassment. "You are so dirty. How can you come out with me looking like this?" Heads turned. People at nearby tables stared. Some whispered. Others chuckled. Amanda's face burned with shame. She wanted to disappear. Instead of helping her, Obina stood up, threw his napkin on the table, and walked out. She sat there, frozen, her eyes blurred with tears. How could he humiliate her like this? Slowly, she stood up, clutching her purse to her stomach to hide the stain. She had to leave. As she made her way to the restroom, she bumped into a woman coming out. "Sorry," she whispered, but her voice was weak. Her heart pounded as she locked herself inside a stall. Tears ran down her cheeks. "This is the third time," she whispered to herself. "How long will I keep taking this?" But the real shock was still ahead. Inside the restroom, Amanda grabbed some tissues and tried to clean the stain, but it was too much. Her hands trembled as she wiped her eyes. Her heart was heavy. She had given 7 years of her life to a man who treated her like trash. Maybe I should just leave him, she thought. But then, fear crept in. Who would love her if she left? She had sacrificed so much for him. Suddenly, a faint, strange noise filled the air. At first she ignored it, thinking it was her imagination. But then she heard it again, a soft, weak crying sound. Her body stiffened. Where was it coming from? She turned, following the sound, and noticed that it was coming from inside one of the toilet bowls. Amanda's heart jumped. She stepped closer, her breath caught in her throat. Slowly, she lifted the toilet cover, and what she saw nearly made her scream. A tiny, premature baby lay inside, gasping for air. Her hands flew to her mouth. It was a baby girl, a newborn, abandoned. The infant was barely moving, struggling for breath. Her skin was wrinkled and tiny, her fingers so small they looked like matchsticks. Amanda froze in shock. Who would do such a thing? Who would leave a helpless child to die in a toilet? Tears filled her eyes. She had to save this baby. Without thinking, she reached into the cold water and lifted the fragile infant into her arms. She didn't care about her stained dress anymore. She didn't care about the whispers and the stares waiting for her outside. She ran out of the restroom, clutching the baby tightly. As soon as Amanda ran out of the restroom, holding the fragile newborn in her trembling arms, the entire restaurant fell into dead silence. The people who had been eating, laughing, and chatting froze in shock, their eyes locked onto her. The baby, wrapped in a thin scarf, let out a weak cry, its tiny mouth opening as though begging for help. Then slowly the silence turned into whispers. "Who is she holding?" someone murmured. "Where did the baby come from?" But then, as their eyes traveled down to her dress, the whispers turned into gasps. "Look, Her dress is covered in blood. She must be the mother. Amanda felt her stomach twist in fear. She opened her mouth to explain, but before she could speak, a woman shouted from the far end of the restaurant. She tried to get rid of the baby and now she's pretending to save it. A man near the counter turned in disgust. How wicked can a woman be? Amanda's heart pounded violently. No, this was not what happened. She gripped the baby tighter, her hands trembling. Please listen to me. I found her inside the toilet. Someone abandoned her. But no one listened. Instead, another man pointed at her accusingly. Then why is your dress covered in blood? Amanda's throat went dry. She tried to explain, but the judgmental stares pierced her like sharp knives. More people gathered, and soon the whispers turned into loud accusations. Wicked woman, she must have done something terrible. This is what happens when women run around with men carelessly. Amanda's vision blurred with tears. She felt like she was drowning, surrounded by a sea of people who had already judged her without knowing the truth. The baby let out another weak cry, and she snapped out of her shock. She had no time to argue. She had to save this child's life. With one last look at the crowd, she turned and ran out of the restaurant. She didn't care about the whispers. She didn't care about the people pointing fingers at her. She only cared about one thing: getting this baby to a hospital before it was too late. Amanda burst out into the cold night air, clutching the tiny newborn to her chest as she frantically searched for a taxi. Her dress was still soaked in blood, but she didn't care. She ran into the middle of the road, waving her hand desperately. "Taxi, please! Someone help me!" The baby's cries grew weaker, and fear gripped her chest. She couldn't let this baby die in her arms. A taxi sped past her, the driver taking one look at her bloody dress and shaking his head. Amanda felt like screaming, but then, finally, a yellow taxi slowed down and pulled over. The driver, an elderly man with a white beard, stared at her in confusion. "What happened to you?" he asked, his eyes darting from her to the baby in her arms. "I don't have time to explain. Please take me to the university teaching hospital," she begged, her voice shaking. The old man hesitated for a second, then nodded. "Get in!" She jumped into the back seat, holding the baby close to her chest, whispering, "Just hold on, little one. You will be okay." As the taxi sped through the city, Amanda's mind raced with questions. Who abandoned this child? Why would anyone leave a baby to die in a toilet? Her heart ached as she looked at the tiny face. The baby looked so fragile, so innocent. And yet, someone had thrown her away like trash. Tears welled up in Amanda's eyes. She had no idea why fate had placed this child in her hands, but she knew one thing: she would do everything in her power to protect her. The taxi screeched to a stop in front of the hospital's emergency entrance. Before the driver could even say a word, Amanda threw the door open and ran out. She sprinted toward the hospital doors, her legs shaking, her breath ragged. "Help! Please! Someone help me!" she screamed. Doctors and nurses turned, startled by the sight of a blood-covered woman holding a crying baby. A nurse rushed forward. "What happened?" "I found her in the toilet," Amanda gasped. "She was left there to die." The nurse's eyes widened in shock. Immediately, two doctors grabbed the baby and placed her on a small emergency bed. They rushed her into the intensive care unit, leaving Amanda standing there, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. A different nurse approached her. "Miss, are you hurt? Are you the mother?" Amanda shook her head quickly. "No, I'm not the mother. I just found her." The nurse gave her a skeptical look. "You found a baby in a toilet, and now you're covered in blood." Amanda felt her stomach drop. Would these people think she was lying too? Would they call the police on her? Before she could speak, a doctor came out. "We need to run some tests," he said. "This baby is in critical condition, and we don't know if she will make it." Amanda felt her heart sink. After all this, was this tiny baby still going to die? The doctor continued, "She is premature, probably around 5 months old. If she survives, she might have health complications." Amanda closed her eyes, her chest tightening. She had never prayed so hard in her life. "Please, God, let her live," she whispered. Minutes turned into hours. She sat in the waiting area, hands clenched together, afraid to even breathe. Then finally, a nurse walked in. Amanda jumped to her feet. "How is she?" The nurse smiled. "The baby is stable," she said softly. Amanda broke down in tears. She had saved her. She had given this child another chance at life. But even as relief washed over her, she knew this was just the beginning. The battle wasn't over yet. Amanda sat in the hospital waiting room, her hands clasped tightly together, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The baby was stable, but the night had not yet ended for her. As she wiped away the tears from her cheeks, she saw 2 security officers walking towards her. She immediately knew something was wrong. "Madam," one of them said, folding his arms across his chest, "please, we need to ask you a few questions." Amanda felt a shiver crawl up her spine. "What questions?" she asked, trying to sound calm. "About the baby," the second officer replied. "The doctors say you found her in the toilet, but madam, we need to confirm if this is really true." Amanda blinked rapidly, her chest tightening. "Of course it's true. I told the doctors everything. I found the baby in the restaurant restroom. I have no reason to lie." The officers exchanged a knowing look. Then one of them pulled out a small notebook. "Madam, we received an anonymous report that you may have attempted an abortion and that the baby is actually yours." Amanda almost choked on her own breath. "What?" she cried out. "That is a terrible lie. I have never been pregnant. I don't even have a boyfriend." The officers remained unmoved. "We just need to follow hospital protocol," one of them said. "Madam, we have to take you to the police station for questioning." Amanda felt her knees weaken. Police station? For something she did not do? Her mind raced. If they arrested her, who would care for the baby? Would they even continue to treat her now that the hospital thought she was guilty? She had to do something. "I need to call someone," she said quickly, reaching for her phone. She only had one person she could call, her best friend, Obina. Obina was in his apartment watching TV when his phone started ringing. He picked up and saw Amanda's name flashing on the screen. At first he smiled. Amanda rarely called this late at night, but when he answered, his smile quickly disappeared. "Obina, please help me. They're taking me to the police station." Obina jumped to his feet. "Police station? What happened?" She quickly explained everything: the baby, the restaurant, the hospital, and now the false accusations. Obina didn't wait another second. "I'm on my way," he said. 15 minutes later, he arrived at the hospital's entrance, just as 2 officers were leading Amanda toward a waiting police car. Obina ran to them, his voice loud. "Wait, what is happening here?" "Who are you?" one officer asked. "I am her best friend," Obina said, trying to calm his breathing. "Why are you arresting her?" The officer sighed. "Someone reported that she tried to get rid of her baby." Obina looked at Amanda in disbelief. "This is nonsense. Amanda would never do such a thing." Amanda, now struggling to hold back tears, shook her head. "Obina, please help me prove my innocence." Obina took a deep breath, turning to the officers. "Listen, officers, before you arrest her, at least check the restaurant's CCTV footage. It will prove that she only found the baby." The officers looked at each other, considering his words. "Fine," one finally said. But if the video does not prove her innocence, she's coming with us. The security officers drove straight to the restaurant, with Amanda and Obinna following behind. The manager on duty looked surprised to see them. "Good evening, officers," he said politely. "We need to see your security footage from earlier tonight," one of the officers said. The manager nodded and led them into a small office, where a large computer screen displayed the restaurant's security footage. Obinna and Amanda held their breath as the manager rewound the video. Then they saw it. Amanda rushing into the restroom, then coming out, holding the newborn baby. "Pause it," one officer said. The manager paused the footage. "There," the officer pointed. "Go back a little. Let's see who entered before her." The manager scrolled back. That's when they saw another woman running into the restroom, holding her stomach as though she was in pain. Then, after a few minutes, she ran out, looking relieved, as if she had just abandoned something. The officers leaned forward, studying her face. "Who is she?" one officer asked. The manager squinted at the screen. "I recognize her. She was sitting at table 6 earlier." Obinna turned to the officers. "This proves Amanda is innocent. That woman is the real mother." The officers exchanged glances before nodding. "Fine, Amanda, you are free to go," one officer finally said. Amanda felt a rush of relief wash over her. But one question remained: who was the woman who had abandoned the child? And why had she done it? Amanda couldn't stop thinking about the woman who had abandoned the baby. Even though she was now free from the false accusations, her mind kept returning to the security footage, to the moment when the woman had rushed into the restroom looking distressed and then walked out as if nothing had happened. She tossed and turned all night, unable to sleep. What if the woman was in danger? What if she had been forced to do it? And if she wasn't forced, what could have made a mother abandon her own child? The thought made Amanda's chest feel tight with worry. By morning, she had made a decision. "I need to find that woman," she told Obinna as they sat in her living room. Obinna frowned, rubbing his temples. "Amanda, are you hearing yourself? This woman left her own baby in a toilet? What if she doesn't want to be found?" "But why, Obinna? That's what I need to know. No mother just wakes up and abandons her child. What if something happened to her?" Obinna sighed loudly, shaking his head. "You are too soft-hearted, Amanda. Sometimes people do wicked things and there is no explanation." "But I need to know," she insisted. Obinna knew once Amanda set her mind on something, there was no stopping her. "Fine," he said, raising his hands in surrender. "What do you plan to do?" The first step was to go back to the restaurant where everything had happened. Maybe someone had seen the woman before she ran into the restroom. Maybe she had been sitting with someone. Amanda and Obinna arrived at the restaurant in the afternoon, the place buzzing with people enjoying their lunch. The manager recognized them immediately. "Ah, you again," he said. "I hope there's no more trouble." Amanda gave a small smile. "No trouble, sir. We just need to ask some questions." The manager folded his arms, nodding. "All right, what do you want to know?" Amanda took a deep breath. "The woman from the CCTV footage, the one who went into the restroom before me, did she come in with anyone? Did she eat anything? Did she talk to anyone?" The manager thought for a moment, rubbing his chin. "She was sitting at table 6, he said, alone. I remember because she looked nervous, kept looking around as if someone was watching her." Amanda's stomach tightened. "She was alone?" The manager nodded. "Yes, she ordered only a bottle of water. She sat there for a long time, holding her stomach as if she was in pain. Then she suddenly ran to the restroom." Amanda and Obinna exchanged glances. Something was not right. The manager continued. "She left her handbag behind when she ran out. One of my waiters took it, but she never came back for it. Amanda's eyes widened in surprise. You still have the handbag? The manager nodded. Yes, we keep lost items for a few days in case someone comes back for them. Can we see it? Obina asked. The manager hesitated, then sighed. Wait here. A few minutes later, he returned with a small brown leather handbag. Amanda felt her heart racing as she took it. This could have important clues about the woman's identity. Amanda opened the bag carefully. Inside, she found a small old phone switched off, a few naira notes crumpled together, a photo of a young woman holding a baby bump, smiling at the camera. Amanda's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the photo. Obina, look at this, she whispered. Obina leaned in, frowning. She was pregnant, he murmured. Maybe this was taken before she gave birth? Amanda flipped the photo over. There was something written on the back. Somto, my joy is coming soon. I will love you forever. The name Somto stood out. Was this the woman's name, or was it the baby's name? Amanda felt a lump in her throat. She looked up at the manager. Do you remember if she spoke to anyone? The manager shook his head. No, but maybe the waiter who served her will know more. He turned and called over a young waiter named Uche. Uche, nervous but curious, walked over. Yes, sir. The manager pointed at the photo. Do you remember this woman? Uche's eyes widened. Yes, she was crying before she ran to the restroom. She kept whispering something like, he will kill me, or I have no choice. I didn't understand. Amanda and Obina stared at each other in shock. Someone was threatening her? Did she say anything else? Amanda asked, her voice urgent. Uche nodded slowly. Yes, she asked me where the nearest police station was, but she never went there. Amanda's mind raced with questions. Was she running from someone? Why did she leave her baby? And why didn't she go to the police? One thing was certain. This woman had been in serious trouble. Amanda and Obina immediately went to the nearest police station, hoping to find out if Somto had ever filed a report or asked for help. At the station, an officer listened to their story and looked at the photo. He shook his head. We don't have any reports of a missing person by that name, but we can check our records. He disappeared into an office, leaving them waiting for almost 30 minutes. When he returned, his expression had changed. You were right, he said. A woman named Somto Okafor came in 2 months ago. She filed a complaint about someone threatening her life. Amanda's heart skipped a beat. What happened? The officer sighed. She claimed her boyfriend was abusive, said he was controlling her, and that she was scared for her life. But after she filed the complaint, she never returned to follow up. Amanda felt a chill go down her spine. Do you have his name? The officer nodded. Yes, his name is Nonsonwosu. Obina stiffened beside her. I know that name, he muttered. Amanda turned to him, eyes wide. You do? Obina nodded slowly. Yes, he's the son of a powerful politician in this city. Amanda felt her stomach drop. If this man was so powerful, could that be the reason why Somto disappeared? Had he done something to her? Amanda's fingers curled into fists. She had to find Somto, and she had to make sure this man did not get away with whatever he had done. Amanda and Obina sat in the car outside the police station, their minds racing. The name Nonso Nwosu was not just any name. It belonged to the son of one of the wealthiest and most influential men in the state. If he was truly responsible for what happened to Somto, then getting justice would not be easy. Amanda clutched the photo they had found in Somto's bag, her heart pounding. The woman in the picture looked happy, hopeful, unaware of the dark future that awaited her. What if he hurt her? She whispered. Obina exhaled slowly. If he did, we need to be careful, Amanda. People like Nonso, they don't like being exposed. His father is a powerful man. They can make people disappear. Amanda's stomach tightened. She knew Obina was right. They had to be smart about this. We need to find Somto before we do anything else, she said, her voice firm. She could still be alive. She could be in danger. Obina nodded. But how do we find her? She disappeared 2 months ago. If Nonso really did something to her, he might have hidden her. Amanda took a deep breath, trying to think clearly. We have to start with people who knew her. If she had any friends or family, maybe they can tell us where she might have gone. They decided to examine the photo more closely. Amanda flipped it over again, reading the words written on the back. Somto, my joy is coming soon. I will love you forever. The handwriting was delicate, careful, as if written by someone who was full of love and excitement. It was clear this was written before everything went wrong. Look at the background, Obina said, pointing at the image. She's sitting in front of a building. That sign in the corner. It looks like the name of a clinic. Amanda squinted at the faded words in the corner of the picture. It wasn't fully visible, but she could make out the letters. Grace Maternity, she whispered. That must be the clinic where she had her checkups when she was pregnant. Obina's eyes widened. If we find the clinic, we might find someone who remembers her. Amanda's heart pounded with hope. This was their first real clue. We need to go there, right now. Obina and Amanda drove through the busy streets of Enugu, scanning the roads for any hospital or maternity clinic with the name Grace Maternity. After almost an hour, they finally saw a small private maternity clinic with a sign that read, Grace Maternity and Childcare Center. This must be it, Obina said, pulling into the parking lot. The clinic was not fancy. It was a modest building with light yellow walls and a simple signboard, but it looked well kept and professional. Amanda and Obina walked inside, greeted by the cool air from an old ceiling fan. A nurse in a blue uniform sat behind a counter, looking up at them with a friendly smile. Good afternoon, the nurse said. How may I help you? Amanda pulled out the photo and placed it on the counter. We're looking for this woman, she said, her voice hopeful. Her name is Somto Okafor. We think she was a patient here a few months ago. The nurse picked up the photo and studied it carefully. After a moment, her eyes widened in recognition. Yes, she said slowly, I remember her. Amanda felt her breath catch. She was one of our patients, the nurse continued. She came in regularly for her antenatal checkups. She was a lovely woman, always polite, but she looked very sad. Amanda leaned forward, her voice urgent. Do you know what happened to her? Do you know where she is now? The nurse's expression darkened. She stopped coming 2 months ago. One day she just disappeared. No calls, no messages. It was strange because she always came for her appointments. Amanda's stomach twisted. She was scared, she murmured. She told someone that her life was in danger. The nurse sighed. She did mention that she was having problems with the baby's father. She never said his name, but I could tell she was afraid of him. I asked her if she needed help, but she just smiled and said she would be fine. Obina and Amanda exchanged worried glances. Do you have her contact information? Obina asked. An address? Anything that can help us find her? The nurse hesitated. I'm not allowed to share patient information, but I really did care about her. She sighed and reached for a notebook from under the counter. She once wrote down her sister's phone number for emergency contact. Maybe her sister knows something. She tore a small piece of paper and handed it to Amanda. This is the number. Amanda took the paper, her hands trembling with excitement and fear. Thank you so much. Back in the car, Amanda quickly dialed the number on the paper. The phone rang 3 times, then a woman's voice answered. Hello? Amanda swallowed hard. Good afternoon. Please, is this Amaka Okafor? A brief silence. Yes. Who is this? My name is Amanda. I'm looking for Somto. It's very urgent. Please, do you know where she is? Another silence, then a deep sigh. My sister is missing, Amaka said, her voice heavy with pain. She hasn't been home for 2 months. We don't know where she is. Amanda felt her heart sink. We found her baby, she whispered. A sharp gasp came from the other end of the phone. Her baby? What do you mean? Somto's baby is missing too. She told me she was pregnant with twins, but we only saw one baby when she left. Amanda's head spun. Twins? She had twins? Yes, Amaka said, her voice breaking. But we don't know what happened. She was supposed to come home. We were waiting for her. Then she just disappeared. Amanda gripped the phone tighter. We have to find her, Amaka. She might still be in danger. Amaka sniffled, trying to compose herself. I'll do anything to find my sister. Amanda's jaw tightened with determination. We will find her, and we will find out what really happened. But as she ended the call, a terrible feeling settled in her chest. If Somto had gone missing after being threatened by Nonso, then time was running out, and the truth they were about to uncover might be far more dangerous than they ever imagined. Amanda felt a wave of fear and urgency after speaking with Amaka. Somto had been missing for 2 months, and now they knew that she had been pregnant with twins. But where was she? And why did only one baby end up abandoned in the toilet? Amanda and Obina sat in the car thinking. We need to act fast, Obina said, his fingers tapping against the steering wheel. If Nonso was involved, then finding Somto won't be easy. Amanda sighed. But we have her sister's help now. That's something. She looked down at the small piece of paper where she had written Amaka's phone number. At least now they had a direct link to someone close to Somto. Amanda dialed Amaka's number again. After a few rings, Amaka picked up. Hello? Amaka? It's Amanda, she said quickly. We need to meet in person. We have so much to talk about, and I need to know everything about your sister's life before she disappeared. Amaka hesitated. All right, where should we meet? Somewhere safe, Amanda said. Somewhere private. They agreed to meet at a small coffee shop in town, away from any prying eyes. Amanda and Obina arrived first. They picked a corner table far from the entrance and waited. Minutes later, Amaka walked in. She was a tall, slender woman with the same delicate features as Somto. But unlike her missing sister, Amaka's eyes were sharp and filled with suspicion. She sat down without a word and looked Amanda straight in the eye. Tell me everything, she said. Amanda took a deep breath and began to explain. She told Amaka how she and Obina had found the photo in Somto's bag, how they had traced her to Grace Maternity Clinic, and how the nurse confirmed that Somto was afraid of the man who got her pregnant. When Amanda finished, Amaka sat still, her hands clenched into fists. Nonso, she whispered. Obina leaned forward. You know him? Amaka nodded slowly. Somto mentioned his name once, but she never told me who he really was. She just said she had met a man who promised her marriage, and that she was going to have his baby. Amanda's heart sank. She really loved him, didn't she? Amaka looked away. She did, and I told her not to trust him. A deep sadness crossed her face. But she didn't listen. Obina sighed. Amaka, do you think Somto is still alive? Amaka hesitated. I don't know, but if she is, we have to find her before it's too late. Just then Amaka's phone rang. She glanced at the number and froze. What is it? Amanda asked. Amaka's hands were shaking. I don't know this number. Obina and Amanda exchanged a worried look. Answer it, Obina said. Amaka put the call on speaker. A deep male voice spoke. Stop looking for Somto. A chill ran down Amanda's spine. Amaka's eyes widened. Who is this? The voice ignored her. If you don't stop, you will regret it." Then the line went dead. Silence filled the air. Amanda's hands tightened into fists. "They know we're looking for her." Obina took a deep breath. "Which means we're close to the truth." Amaka looked around, her fear visible. "What do we do now?" Amanda's voice was firm. "We keep going." Amanda knew that whoever was behind Somto's disappearance was watching them, but that only made her more determined to find the truth. "We need to find out more about Nonso," she said. "His past, his connections, his family, everything." Obina nodded. "But we have to be careful. If we make too much noise, they might come after us." Amaka looked scared but nodded. "I just want my sister back," she whispered. Amanda put a comforting hand on Amaka's. "We'll find her, I promise." Obina had a friend, Kelechi, who worked in cybersecurity. "If anyone can help us track Nonso, it's Kelechi," Obina said. They drove to Kelechi's apartment, a small but well-equipped place filled with computer screens and gadgets. Kelechi greeted them with a smile. "You need information on someone?" Obina nodded. "Nonso Nwosu." Kelechi's eyebrows lifted. "The rich kid?" "Yes," Amanda said. "We think he's behind Somto's disappearance." Kelechi whistled. "That's dangerous. His father is well connected." Obina leaned in. "Can you help us?" Kelechi sighed. "Give me a few minutes." He began typing on his keyboard. After a while, he looked up. "I found something interesting." "What is it?" Amanda asked. "Nonso traveled out of the country a week after Somto disappeared." Amanda's stomach dropped. "Where did he go?" "Dubai," Kelechi replied. "And he hasn't returned since." Obina frowned. "That's suspicious." Amanda nodded. "If he left the country so fast, he might have been trying to cover his tracks." Kelechi nodded. "But I also found this." He turned the screen toward them. On it was a bank transaction. A payment of 10 million naira, paid to a private doctor. Amaka gasped. Amanda felt ice run through her veins. "What was the payment for?" Kelechi's face was grim. "I don't know, but the name of the doctor is Dr. Ike." Obina wrote down the name. "We need to find him." Amanda, Obina, and Amaka now had a name, Dr. Ike. They knew he had received a huge sum of money from Nonso, and that couldn't be a coincidence. If they wanted to get closer to finding Somto, they had to find out what Dr. Ike was hiding. But there was one problem. Dr. Ike was no ordinary doctor. He was a private physician who only treated the wealthy and powerful. His clinic was in a high-security estate, a place where only influential people had access. "We need a plan," Obina said as they sat in Amanda's apartment. Amaka clenched her fists. "We don't have time for a plan. My sister could be in danger." Amanda sighed. "I know, but we can't just walk into a rich man's clinic and start asking questions. We need to be smart." Obina rubbed his chin. "We need a way to get inside." Then an idea came to him. "I know someone who works there." Amanda's eyes lit up. "Who?" Obina picked up his phone and dialed a number. "My cousin, Chioma. She's a nurse there." 30 minutes later, they met Chioma at a small restaurant. She looked nervous. "You're asking me to risk my job," she said after hearing their plan. Obina nodded. "We just need to know what happened in that hospital 2 months ago. Please, Chioma." Chioma sighed. "Dr. Ike is very secretive. He doesn't allow anyone to see certain patients. But I remember something." Amanda leaned forward. "What?" Chioma lowered her voice. 2 months ago, a young woman was brought in. She looked weak, almost unconscious. The doctor didn't let anyone else handle her case." Amaka gasped. "That must be Somto." Chioma nodded. "She was there for 2 days, and then suddenly she was gone." Amanda's heart pounded. "Gone? Where did she go?" Chioma shook her head. "No one knows. The doctor just said she was discharged." Obina frowned. "Or maybe someone took her." Kioma hesitated, then added, "After she left, Dr. Ike fired 2 nurses and increased security." That was enough proof for them. Dr. Ike was hiding something, and they were going to find out what. Dr. Ike's clinic was heavily guarded. Security cameras were everywhere. The gates were high, and the guards looked like military men. Obina and Amanda knew they couldn't just walk in, but Kioma had a way to help. "I have a spare nurse's uniform," she said. "One of you can wear it and sneak in with me." Amanda volunteered immediately. Obina shook his head. "It's too risky." But Amanda was determined. This is the only way. The next evening, she dressed in the uniform and followed Kioma into the clinic. Her heart raced. Everywhere she looked, rich patients sat comfortably, getting first-class treatment. The air smelled like expensive perfume and fresh flowers. She and Kioma walked fast, trying not to look suspicious. Then Kioma whispered, "That's Dr. Ike's office." Amanda's palms were sweaty. This was it. They waited until Dr. Ike left for a meeting, then slipped into his office. Kioma stood by the door, keeping watch. Amanda began searching. She opened drawers, scanned through files, and then she froze. A folder labeled Patient Hash 017 Somto Nwosu was sitting at the bottom drawer. She grabbed it and opened it. Her eyes widened. The file contained medical records, signed documents, and, worst of all, a consent form for an illegal abortion. Amanda's stomach dropped. This was proof. Somto had been here. Nonso had paid for her to have an abortion, but something must have gone wrong. Just then, she heard footsteps. Someone was coming. She quickly took photos of the documents with her phone and returned them. Kioma whispered urgently, "Hurry, we need to leave." They rushed out just in time. As they exited the building, Amanda knew one thing for sure. They were closer than ever to finding Somto. Obina and Amaka were waiting outside. Amanda handed Obina her phone. "Look at this." Obina scrolled through the pictures. His face darkened. "This is proof that Nonso was behind everything." Amaka covered her mouth, tears in her eyes. "So my sister was pregnant, and they forced her to do this?" Obina nodded grimly. "Yes, but there's one problem." Amanda looked at him. "What?" Obina zoomed in on one of the photos. "Look at the last page." Amanda's eyes widened. The document wasn't just signed by Dr. Ike and Nonso. There was one more signature. Chief Edwin Nwosu. Amaka gasped. "That's Nonso's father?" Obina nodded. "Which means this wasn't just Nonso. His father was part of this too." Amanda felt anger rise inside her. These people think they can do whatever they want and get away with it. Amaka wiped her tears. "We need to tell the police." Obina hesitated. "They are rich, powerful. The police might not help us." Amanda clenched her fists. "Then we'll find someone who will." But before they could make their next move, Obina's phone rang. He answered. "Hello?" A familiar voice spoke. "I warned you to stop looking for Somto." It was the same deep male voice from before. "You think you're smart?" The voice continued. "You think you can fight us? Walk away now or you will regret it." Then the line went dead. Silence. A shiver ran down Amanda's spine. Amaka's hands were shaking. "They know what we're doing." Obina's jaw tightened. "They're afraid." Amanda's voice was firm. "Good." But before they could say more, there was a loud bang on the door. Someone was outside. Had the enemy found them? Amanda's heart raced. Obina whispered, "We have to hide." Amaka grabbed the documents. Amanda switched off the lights. Then the door handle turned. The next few seconds would change everything. The door handle turned slowly, making a faint creaking sound. Amanda's heart pounded as she clutched Amaka's hand. Obina signaled for them to stay quiet. The room was dark, the only light coming from a faint street lamp outside. Then, bang! The door burst open. A tall figure stood at the entrance, his silhouette outlined against the dim hallway light. Amanda held her breath. Was this the person who had called Obina? The man stepped forward, and as the light hit his face, Amaka let out a sharp gasp. It was Detective Chidi. "You're lucky I got here first," Detective Chidi said, shutting the door behind him. He was dressed in a plain suit, but his expression was tense. Obina exhaled. "How did you find us?" The detective glanced at the stacks of documents they had on the table. "I should be asking you the same thing." Amaka took a shaky step forward. "Detective, please, we don't have time. We know what happened to Somto. Nonso and his father did this to her." Chidi sighed, rubbing his temples. "I know." Amanda's eyes widened. "What?" Chidi looked at them. "I've been investigating Chief Edwin Nosu for a long time. This isn't the first time a woman has disappeared after dealing with that family." Obina's fists clenched. "So why haven't you arrested them?" Chidi exhaled. "Because they own half the police force in this city." Silence filled the room. Amanda couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Then what do we do?" Chidi's face hardened. "We gather enough evidence that even their money and power can't cover it up. And from what I see here, you've already done half my job." Chidi pulled out a small flash drive from his pocket. "This has all the records of women who have been linked to the Norsu family and then vanished," he said. "But I need solid proof that connects them directly." Amaka's voice shook. "Isn't this proof enough?" Chidi shook his head. "No, the police won't touch them unless we have direct evidence that they harmed Somto." Amanda frowned. "Then we have to find Somto." Obina nodded. "She's alive. I can feel it." Chidi hesitated. "I think I know where she might be." Amaka's hands tightened into fists. "Tell us." Chidi leaned in and whispered, "There's an underground medical facility run by a corrupt doctor. Women who are in trouble, especially those tied to powerful men, end up there. If Somto survived, she might be there." Amanda felt a shiver down her spine. Obina nodded. "Then that's where we're going." Chidi sighed. "I knew you'd say that. That's why I brought these." He reached into his coat and pulled out 3 fake identification cards. "If you want to get into that facility, you'll need these. But be careful. If they suspect you, you won't make it out." Amanda swallowed hard. They had come this far. They weren't turning back now. The underground facility was hidden behind a luxurious spa in the heart of the city. To outsiders, it looked like a high-end wellness center, but Chidi had told them the truth. It was a place where the rich covered up their secrets. Amanda, Obina, and Amaka, dressed in medical scrubs, using the fake IDs Chidi gave them. Their hearts raced as they approached the heavily guarded entrance. A tall security guard checked their IDs. He squinted at Amanda. "You knew?" She forced a nervous smile. "Yes, sir. First day." He grunted and waved them in. They were inside. The facility smelled of antiseptics and had dim blue lighting. Nurses moved around silently, and the patients were heavily sedated. Obina whispered, "This place feels wrong." Amaka shivered. "We need to find her fast." They split up, searching room by room. Then, Amanda stopped suddenly. Her heart nearly stopped. There, in a small white hospital bed, was Somto. She was alive, but she looked weak, frail, and barely conscious. Amanda's breath hitched. "Somto, it's me. It's Amaka's sister." Somto's eyes fluttered open. Tears filled her eyes. You found me?" Amanda nodded, barely holding back her emotions. "Yes, and we're getting you out of here." But just as she reached for her, a loud alarm went off. They had been discovered. Obina and Amaka came running. "What happened?" Amanda grabbed Somto's arm. "No time, we have to go." Security guards flooded the hallways. Obina punched the nearest one and grabbed a metal chair. "Run!" They raced through the corridors, dodging guards and nurses. Amaka held Somto close, supporting her weak body. "We're almost there." Then, A voice boomed over the speakers. "You're not leaving this place alive." It was Nonso. Amanda's stomach turned cold. The exits were locking, the guards were coming, they were trapped. Nonso stood at the end of the hallway, flanked by two armed guards. "You should have stayed out of this," he sneered. Amaka stepped forward. "You ruined my sister's life." Nonso laughed. "She was just another problem to fix, but now you're all problems." He raised his hand, signaling the guards to attack. Then a gunshot rang out. Nonso froze. Detective Chidi stepped into the hallway, gun drawn. "Drop your weapons," he commanded. The guards hesitated. Nonso's face paled. You can't touch me." Chidi smiled coldly. "Watch me." Within minutes, backup flooded the building. Nonso and his father were arrested, screaming about their power. The nightmare was finally over. Days later, Amanda and Amaka sat beside Somto in the hospital. She was recovering, smiling for the first time in months. "I thought I was alone," Somto whispered. Amaka squeezed her hand. "You were never alone." Obina walked in, holding up a newspaper. "The Nwosu family empire crumbles in scandal." Justice had been served. Somto broke down in tears. "I never thought I'd be free." Amanda smiled. "You are now." And as they all sat together, they knew. Their fight had been worth it. Justice had finally won. This story teaches us that justice, courage, and resilience will always overcome evil. Amanda, Amaka, and Obina refused to stay silent when they realized the truth, even when facing powerful enemies. Their bravery reminds us that standing up for what is right is never easy, but it is always worth it. Truth and justice may take time, but they always win in the end. It also shows us the danger of power without conscience. Nonso and his father believed that money and influence could protect them forever, but in the end, their evil deeds caught up with them. No matter how rich or powerful someone is, they cannot escape the consequences of their actions forever. This story also teaches about the power of friendship, loyalty, and family. Even in her darkest moments, Somto was not alone. Amaka, Amanda, and Obina fought for her when she had no strength to fight for herself. True friends do not abandon you when times get tough. They stand by you no matter what. Lastly, this story is a reminder that life is full of second chances. Somto lost everything but found hope again. Amanda and Amaka risked their safety to protect her, and in the end, they all found happiness. No matter how dark life may seem, there is always hope for a new beginning. If you enjoyed this powerful and emotional story, don't forget to like, comment, and share. Let's spread the message that justice, courage, and loyalty always win. Tell us, what part of the story touched you the most? Subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories that inspire, entertain, and teach life lessons. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next story.